Alright, guys, it's Jahlon with the Paradox Gaming Network, and I realized there was an oversight at ashes101.com. I didn't have a companion video to go along with loot, and I realized I haven't actually talked about the loot system on its own. So let's fix that right now with an Ashes crash course, and let's dive in. Let's start with the idea that there is no individual loot in Ashes of Creation. I think some people are bringing their personal histories in games with them. Guild Wars 2 being one of them, where you have your own loot when you engage in events. And that isn't going to be what happens in Ashes of Creation. In fact, that idea goes against one of the design pillars of Ashes, and that is we decided to focus on mechanics that bring the idea of community to the forefront. That's not to say there's not going to be loot, but there's no participation trophy loot. Sometimes you'll get loot, sometimes you won't. So if you're out there with your group and you come across some really nifty swag, who gets it? There's going to be 4 different loot mechanics. You're going to have Master Looter, you're going to have Round Robin, Need Before Greed, and the bidding system. So to start with Master Looter, most people are familiar with this if they've been in guilds before. This is where the party or raid loot master decides who gets what. Basically, guilds use this via systems like DKP, Dragon Kill Points, or through some sort of loot council. This is the person we're choosing to gear up next. Loot Master generally isn't done with pickup groups just because there's always controversy and bickering between people of why did he get it or why didn't I get it. Generally, what you're going to have in pickup groups is something more like round robin. Round robin is every party member takes their turn looting. So if you're in an 8-person group, basically every 8th piece of loot is yours. Now, I am unsure about the separation of trash and meaningful loot. When I say trash loot, I mean like antlers, hooves, tails, things that drop off of the mobs that aren't gear or weapons. They're not boss drops. You could, in fact, end up always getting mob trash as your loot piece, depending on how the round robin was working. So we are going to be looking for a little bit more information from Intrepid on that. They also mentioned a need before greed system. This is the traditional need before greed based on the dice rolls. If you're not familiar with this, if this sword drops and it is a very roguey type sword, it has either a designation that it is primary rogue, or it has dexterity, critical, bleed, backstab damage, all those things that make it roguey. Then a rogue could roll need on that, and everybody else would have to roll greed. If there was a rogue in the party and he rolled need, a 1 on a need roll will always beat a 100 on a greed roll. This brings up a question though, not quite sure how this is going to work in Ashes. Every class can use every weapon and every piece of armor, so we don't know if this is going to be based on primary stat on the gear, if there's going to be designators for certain items. There's a lot about loot we don't know yet, and that's okay. That loot is not a alpha 1 sort of mechanic that needs to get resolved, but we will be waiting for more information from Intrepid. Finally, we have the bidding system. This is a phenomenal system. If you never played Blade and Soul, this is a really fair way to make sure everybody gets compensated. Nobody ever leaves empty-handed. What happens is party members bid on the items as they drop. The winner gets the item. The rest get the gold from the bidding pool. So this sword drops. I'm a cleric. I'm either comfortable with my main hand weapon or I don't want to use a sword. I have no interest in trying to get it. 6 people in the party have no interest, but the sword drops and there are 2 people in the party that want it. They bid back and forth and they finally get it up to 700 gold when somebody bows out. What happens is the winner will get the sword for 700 gold, and the 7 party members would then each get 100 gold. So their time, their effort, their energy is rewarded. Now, there is good potential in this system. Like I said, I actually really enjoy the bidding system. There is some concerns with ninja bidding. These came up during my stream. Say I'm extremely wealthy and I have a lot of in-game currency. I can just keep bidding up all the bids for the weapons or the armor that drops, or I can outright buy them all, and then I can take them to the auction house and I can sell them, thus increasing my profit. That is definitely a fear that happens with this loot system. The other problem is that reputation is everything in a game like Ashes, and that person might find it hard to be reinvited to groups. With that said, I was pretty shocked to see there was no free for all random dice roll mode. Now, is this an oversight or is this just not mentioned because it's so standard to the MMORPG genre that they didn't mention it? And I'm trying to get a soundbite on that in the future. It's actually my question this month for the Q&A. Now, I will say this, guys, I feel like that wasn't enough. I feel like I got to pull up, but wait, there's more. And I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to talk about loot tagging as your extra bonus. And these are just some baseline mechanics when it comes to loot tagging. So you're out there and you're going to try to get a tag on a boss, and you find this big red dragon, and your group has the tag on the monster or the boss. You need to do 40% of the damage to get the loot. Now, we're not talking XP. There's a separate set of XP rules. Remember, this is just talking about how to get loot. So you need to do 40% of the damage for your party or your raid to get the loot. If you do not have the tag on the monster or the boss, you could, of course, flag up, attack the group that does have it, try to wipe them, reset the boss, and then get the tag. Or you think you're really good, you could try to race them in a DPS race, and you could do 60% of the damage, and the loot would become your raid or your party's loot. Now, 40-60 means something needs to bump by 1% or 0.1%, because I could only imagine the hilarity that would ensue if there was an exact 40-60 split. Probably not likely, since it would come down to the single digit, but it would be funny if it happened. I also want to remind people that world bosses are not auto-flagging PvP events. Somewhere along the line, this rumor started, or this thought process got run with, that world bosses are PvP events. As it stands right now, they are not. If Intrepid makes a decision on that, I will update Ashes 101, and Lex will update the wiki accordingly. And with that said, guys, that is it for today. Big one here is the design philosophy of Ashes 101. I like to have a video companion piece with some of the topics. A lot of people were asking me about loot in Ashes. I don't want to give them like a 5-word answer. I want to be able to give them something with a little bit more meat. It's what helps drive the product. With that said, if you're new to Ashes of Creation, welcome to the community. If you ever need anything, I am Jahlon, #0001 on Discord. I'm on the official Discord. I run my own Discord. I also stream 4 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Stop by, ask your question, get it answered live. Until then, guys, I will see you next time for our next Ashes of Creation video. What are you still doing here? Nobody ever stays this long. This is the end screen. Well, since you're here, there's a couple other videos I think you should check out. And all those names, those are my patrons over at Patreon. I couldn't do this without them. So, big thanks to them for all their support.